Joey will be joining. I
Okay.
know Fraser will be out. I've started recording, so we can start this meeting. And then I can catch up Fraser and Joey in the committee report.
Yeah, sounds great. So welcome everyone to the Student Experience and Engagement Committee meeting. Today is Monday, June 24th. We have 4 items to discuss on our agenda today. They are follow-up on truancy bills, next steps on safety and developing a possible research question for our committee, workforce data updates, and then also a recap of the Everyday Counts task force meeting debrief. Any other agenda items that people want to add to our discussion today? Nope. Representative Reed, you good?
Sure. Yeah, I think my topic is more for the general body. So I'll wait till the working session.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to recommend too that after we talk about the truancy, or Darren, that we actually start with the Everyday Counts Task Force debrief, because that can lead into follow up on the truancy bills.
Yeah, absolutely. So our final meeting was last week, June 18th. There were several on the call, and Education Council shared out the slides, got reactions about some general short-term, long-term goals going into this recommendation report that will be coming out this summer. And I believe the slides will be coming out as well. And so I don't have really much to report out of that meeting, but I will share out with the committee the slides and some of the highlights from those slides. I believe some of the comments that came out of that meeting, unfortunately, there was no recording of it, so I couldn't really go back and pull direct quotes, but it seemed that just for short term, making sure that there are recommendations for like going into summer, return to back to school, and just like utilizing those partnerships to make sure that students are safe, engaged in school, and then long term would be things like clustering different agencies in sort of a collaborative fashion.
Yeah, I think. And did they give? Was there a date as to when the report will be released?
Not yet, but we should know soon. I know Carla will be getting back to us shortly with that information.
Great, thanks. Any questions about the meeting or any general thoughts on the as we segue into discussion on the truancy bills? All right. All right. So then my main thing there, and then I'd like to just kind of get other members' thoughts on the truancy bills, are that um I'm looking for like a more to see what the roles of schools are in this conversation. A lot of the conversation for the task force was looking at a lot of like um district agencies and central office and just kind of outside entities and community-based organizations and the roles they play. So I'm kind of looking to see if they can clarify what schools are actually going to be responsible for. um and then would also like for us to kind of think about what role we want to play. I don't feel like we have any greater clarity on that yet, but if anyone has any ideas, I'd love to hear those.
I was trying to pull up the text. Wait, are you talking about, did we write another resolution, or are we looking at they're preparing for the hearing, or what's going on with truancy this time?
Do you want me to explain, or you want to go through it, Ben?
I just need like a quick.
Okay, so they've got the 4 bills up for a hearing.
Okay,
And
they're
it's
having
going to
another
be
hearing.
Yeah, and if you want easy access to them, you can go
No.
on dccouncil.gov.
I'm good. So yeah, I know I just need to be oriented to exactly like what we were talking about. Yeah, so I guess my overall sentiment is like we've had so many hearings on the area of truancy, and at this rate, it being June 24th, so we're very close to like about almost a month away before probably admins are in buildings if they're some of them are already, but like we're already talking about like the next school year. So I'm like, what are the interventions that are being rolled out versus more theory? And to your point, Ben, like, community, they're saying community orgs and this and that. I would be more interested in, like you're saying, like how are we supporting schools? What steps are like, our agencies taking, and like are like maybe adopt a strategy or two to roll out for a quarter and see what the results are, collect on data on that and see if it needs to be scaled up or tweaked. Versus we're constantly talking about like this same topic. I know we've entertained it about 3 different times on the board, probably in response to council having a hearing. I don't know, but I think if anyway, and I didn't have opportunity to review the testimony because I was enjoying the Juneteenth holiday. But my sentiment stands of like at this point, like let's do a couple of interventions. I'm not sure. And Eric, maybe in your review of the bills, did you see any specific interventions hosted by like either OSSI or the DME?
Well,
Or
they've got, I think the mayor's bill goes the deepest on it in terms of kind of specific referrals and interventions that they're looking at, things DC government can do better.
okay.
I mean, the Robert White bill just involves posting data on the referral service. Uh, Charles Allen's bill also looks at data, but then sets certain standards if chronic absenteeism exceeds a certain amount at schools. Now, I think that may require funding though, so that one's probably subject to appropriations. And then the final of the 4 bills is called Showing Up for Students. This one came from Councilmember Parker, and what this one appears to also kind of set like standards by school if rates exceed a certain level, and then I mean, it looks like it creates like family engagement interventions, but I think that would be subject to appropriations. So, for me on this, I think I still need to review the bills deeper. I signed up to testify on them, which in the hearing is going to be, I think Wednesday. Is that right?
That's my
Yeah.
understanding.
So I'll sign up in my individual capacity. I've signed up. You can still sign up until 9 a.m. If anybody's interested in testifying at the hearing, and you can choose the bills to speak on. I just chose one of the 4 because I don't need to speak, 4 times on all of them. I think I'll just reference the other 3.
Darren popped in the chat I guess the legislative agenda, but the 4. Which one is the mayor's, or is the
The
mayor's?
mayor's is Bill 25-791. It's called Utilizing Partnerships and Local Interventions for Truancy and Safety, the Uplift Amendment Act of 2024.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's helpful.
And
Yeah.
that seems to have the most meat to it. The other ones I think have some good stuff too, but we want to, I assume they'll be merged into one bill. And then, I mean, there's 73 people signed up so far for the hearing. What I don't know, Darren, are we speaking as a board on this issue at all? Because I know we passed our resolution on truancy prevention. Is Director Butler going to be presenting that at the meeting? And I see you have the crosswalk up there. Great, on the bills.
Yeah. If you want to just break it down, this is just a kind of cheat sheet for the 4 bills. And
Well, that's really helpful. Can you email that to us too?
yeah,
If you haven't done so already, you may have already sent it to me.
And that's part of the wider crosswalk that Jen has been drafting as well. So, but I can email it to you. For Wednesday, I know President Thompson will be testifying on those bills, and
Will she be speaking on behalf of the board or her individual capacity?
on behalf of the board.
Oh, good. Okay, that's great.
And also, I think there's about 78 witnesses so far. I haven't seen their testimony. Their testimony is not available
Yeah,
just yet.
73 is the current count. I
73.
just checked it.
Yeah, and I don't see their testimony available yet to download, but we will be watching, and I'll make sure to provide highlights to the committee. or the wider members on coming from that hearing.
And that I know that the draft language came out over the holiday. So I'm guessing it's already baked, like no rush if it's already it's solidified, it's been sent over.
It's been sent over, and
Okay.
I can share that following this meeting, just the final version,
Okay, cool, yeah.
if that's helpful.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
And
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. And also, just I think supplementing all of this is the everyday counts task force recommendations. So we have the bills. We'll have recommendations coming out later this summer.
Mhm.
We have our state board crosswalk, and then later on, I'm sure we're gonna touch on this committee's research, which might also be able to tap into that.
And Darren, like, do you have the general sense of like, are all of the things that are happening with this hearing, like, is the goal for there to be something to be actionable starting the 24-25 school year?
That is a great question.
Because that's my push, honestly. Like, I'm gonna like get maybe, I don't know, while I'm on this call into some of the weeds of it.
Mhm.
But I'm kind of like, whatever we pick, as long as it's not like super punitive, but like whatever we pick, like just start something, a couple of things. And like, of course, data is always going to be collected in our city for the most part, even the basic, did they come, did they not come? But just, a couple of interventions, if that can be stressed somehow, of like, as a city, let's do something starting in September or August, and like, let's give it a quarter, analyze it over the holiday break, and then like see, this is working, and then keep going in January, etc. That's just my push, because I just, on my 4 years on this board, we just had a lot of hearings on and actually it was like, yeah, we've had a lot of hearings on the topic. And actually I was talking to a neighbor and she was like, where's the implementation? So it's kind of like, I know, we're kind of, we love to be thoughtful of things, but sometimes we have to like act.
Carlene, you should testify.
I can't, because guess what? The State Board of Education is not a fully funded body where we can't, just roam around unemployed. So I have work on.
You could write written test. You could provide written testimony.
And that's a good idea. I don't know, maybe before the record closes. But I'm also hoping that like I'm not the only person saying this.
From my understanding, though, like from our testimony, we're lifting up parts of the bills that we agree with. We lift up our own resolution, and there's some similar to EDC, just short-term solutions, just like what can be done, getting ready for the summer, and but definitely these are much longer term
Yeah,
approaches. But yeah, that you make some good points. So
we'll see.
let us know.
And to your point, Carlene, like in the meetings leading up to the June meeting, figuring out a plan for both the summer and the fall have been part of those conversations. So I would be disappointed, and I think there's a reasonable expectation that the report will have actionable things for this upcoming school year, because that was how the focus of the conversations and the collaboration was geared at each of the task force meetings.
Well, that gives me less heart palpitations. I just don't want to go into another school year of let's have a roundtable on truancy, and we're like, admiring the problem, and it's like this time next year we should say these are the solutions that were tried. These ones were great. That was a terrible idea. Let's tweak it. Let's, like to Eric's point, we should have data coming up on next year for budget season to say, hey, that did great. Fund it. Oh, that didn't do great. Scratch it. Put money elsewhere. So
Yeah, and I think to me it's a both and between the things that Eric mentioned with the data pieces, right? But also having, like you said, the implementation and interventions, and making sure that they're useful. Anything else that we want to kind of reference here, in light of the hearing? I'm not sure how quickly council will move. I don't know, Eric, if you have a sense of that, or any other ideas you want to add to the conversation.
Yeah, well, I do have an inkling of it because I suspect what they'll do is then use the summer to merge this legislation in some format. Probably move it into one bill, an omnibus or something of that nature. And they would have to approve something by the end of this council period. Otherwise, the legislation will lapse and they would have to be reintroduced. So I think they'd probably try to take some action given the importance of this within this calendar year. Now, I think when I look at the bills, maybe some of the data reporting doesn't have a cost associated with it. I believe most of these other interventions would have a fiscal impact. So likely, we're not talking this school year that these would be in effect. It would probably be things that would have to be voted through subject to appropriations, then funded in the FY26 budget, and then implemented next school year. So hopefully, some of the interventions that were discussed heavily, like things that we already should be doing at the oversight hearing, which was last fall, hopefully those are being done right now, and this legislation will build upon those. I don't know if that's the direction we've taken with our testimony. I'll double check that, but I think, we've had some ideas too, like out of school time expansion, which I'd love to see them explore more, because I think that would help, particularly if those programs are in the schools with retaining students, just because that may be the one hook that keeps a kid interested in school. And then I think what this committee can do, and I would love to work on, with you, Representative Williams, Representative Reed in the fall, is just what can we do in our lane at the state board to try to make curriculum as, I guess, as exciting as possible and make our kids engaged in what they're learning in school, so that helps with truancy. I know it may not be the most impactful of these lanes, but it really is our lane. So I just want to try to do what we can do there to improve it. Because I think if everybody does their part, and we do our part, things will get better. So that's kind of just my thoughts generally on it. I look forward to, I'll be speaking on it and try to support our board. But maybe with a little bit of a focus also on the out of school time piece when I testify. And I'll share my testimony with you all just so you can see it.
Ben, are you planning on testifying?
Me?
I'm not.
Eric said he was. Are
Yeah,
you?
I signed up, yeah.
Ben, are you?
No,
Okay.
not in addition to the testimony that President Thompson is giving. I've been involved in the conversations throughout. So but you know, but I might communicate with Councilmember Nadeau just so that she knows some of the things that are top of mind.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I was just thinking about, I visited one of my charter schools, and they were mentioning even this. So I might end up trying to like not testify, type something to submit. Because I was thinking something else that came up was during a visit to one of my charters was the system that notifies parents, and it's to your point, Ben, about the school part. They were saying it would actually, they felt that, and I'm not sure if all other schools feel the same way, but they said that it's like a contract that notifies parents of like an absence or something like that. And the school was saying they felt that it would be more impactful if the notification like came from the school, like their school, versus the contractor, even though I know the contractors there support the school, because I know, that could be a burden for some schools. But it was interesting that they mentioned it. They're not a single site. They got a couple schools. So I'm not sure if that's a sentiment to everyone. I'll be curious. But that was something that came up during a walkthrough about they also made like one of their biggest things is, attendance, especially with the younger students, actually, that caught my ear.
Yeah.
And they mentioned the system that is used to like report. It comes out of like either Aussie or some kind of number, but the parents generally, it's kind of like how you get spam text. They feel like that's how parents may be receiving that text. So I'm not sure what the solution is. I can see the con of, that means somebody at a building or central office of some sort would be doing that. And that means, like Eric said, humans, which equals capital. So yeah, just want to throw that out there just in case anybody, but I'll try to get a written statement if I can, but just want to throw that out there. If anybody has conversations with their council as a committee, it might just be helpful to help one another. If you get in contact with Brianne, Ben, or Eric, if you in your advocacy, and then I'm gonna try to maybe get something on paper.
Thanks, Chris.
And I notice on the attendee side, we've got one of our student reps. If you want to, I don't know if you've seen that, Darren, if we want to promote Representative Villaflor to the meeting here. I note he's on as an attendee.
Thanks, Representative Goulet. Any final action steps or points of conversation for the upcoming truancy hearings? All right, Darren, can you just then, when you can, send around the updated board testimony and the crosswalk?
I don't have the text of the crosswalk, but I can share that at some point. Let me pull up the testimony. I'll go on mute for just a moment while I'm pulling.
Thanks. It'd be helpful to read just to know what exactly we're lifting up prior to the hearing. And then yeah, welcome Representative Villaflor. We're gonna move into safety. And the focus here right now is just based off of the last working session conversation, and thinking about how, how we can develop a useful research question for our committee, something to really explore. We know that safety is a continual issue. I'm curious about others' thoughts as to how we can kind of map or look at like communication patterns in our ecosystem, if you will, for who's communicating with whom, so that we can share information and be better at working collaboratively to address student safety.
Would you like me to start?
Go for it.
Okay. What I would like to kind of start to understand in more depth at this point, now that the budget is finalized, is what the impact of council's cut on school security is. And I know school security increased significantly. We moved the school security contract over from MPD to DCPS, so that accounted for the increase in it. And I know there was a reduction. I think some of those funds may have gone back, but I don't know where it all got settled, and I'm not sure anybody does yet, because DCPS may need to show specifically what the impact of that was. And I know the mayor's team had written a letter to council on this issue, expressing concern about the impact of safety on children. So I'm not sure if any of us know yet, but I would really like to understand what impact that's going to have on what we're trying to do now, and then see how we build from there. Because I know, safety is an issue in every ward. Certainly, I care about it in mine, but in certain schools, it's certainly greater than others. And I'd like to understand what that cut really means to our DCPS system. So I don't know if they've had any outreach to you, Representative Williams, on that as the chair of this committee, but it's something that concerns me a lot. I'd like to understand what it means, and then kind of see if there is a negative impact from that, how we can work to fill that gap.
I hear that. Representative Reed, Villaflor, any thoughts on that or other pieces of the safety topic?
I'll just throw out again, like clarity on roles. Like what, again, I think one question is, what are the components of student safety? And then clarity on all those components' roles.
Right.
So that way folks are asking for what they need at the right time. So like when folks say a safe passage, are they talking about people in the green vest? Or are they talking about they want a police presence? Are they talking about community safety in general to be increased? So I think just defining who are all the players and what are their roles. So that way, I guess if like you see a breakdown in something, then it's like, oh, we're asking for the right thing. Like, so it's like it was a breakdown in building safety, and it's like, oh, well, these are individuals responsible for building, indoors, or, and that's when we need to dedicate resources or focus on. If the focus is on, the blocks around the school, you know, who or what components are responsible for that, and we're asking for the right thing. Because sometimes I think we just, I mean, which I get, the cry is for safety, but I guess as a research question, it'd be more about like when we see certain breakdowns, then who is responsible, or just one knowing who's responsible for what, so that we are asking for the right thing when things emerge, or to prevent things too.
Yeah, and I think that's even a prerequisite to like kind of what I was getting at, where like oftentimes people don't know who to contact. If something happens outside the building, or you know, if something happens on the metro, or just, you know, kind of making sure that we're clear so that we can then you know, people can be more knowledgeable about being proactive with communicating with when things come up. Representative Villaflor, any thoughts on what would be most important to know or study around student safety?
Um, not like nothing in particular, but I guess just like making sure that this like environment that students are in are like well maintained so that they can like stay safe. Especially when there's more, at least I'm thinking in specifically about like if there's like something that we talked about a while ago where there's like police tape or caution tape or something around the our school, it can make students feel like not safe. So just like maintenance and things like that.
Okay. Um, so I think into moving forward, how do we I think that Representative Goulet, do you see the role clarification as an incremental step to them being able to look at the impact of um, the movement of school resource officers? Like, do you think that would be useful for us to pursue?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it was the school resource officers that got cut. I think the cut may have been on security officers. I don't think there was any cut to SROs this time. I know there was one a couple years ago. I don't think there's been any further step downs of SROs. I would love to see, maybe, you know, in the minority on this, but I would love to see those SROs returned. I know a lot of principals were really disappointed that those cuts occurred. And I think it would be great if we could restore the SROs that were lost due to that 1 year of council reduction. So I would love to see the SROs come back and be restored to the prior levels. I think the cut that we're thinking of though now with council probably did not fall on SROs. It probably fell on the private security officers, or it may have been other interventions for school security. I'm not sure how they ultimately allocated it. I'm not even sure council knows exactly what they reduced, which is what is a little concerning. However, I was relieved that the money went back to the local schools, which is what I think is most important. So
Right.
I certainly can't complain about the destination for the funds, which I think was really important to get the funds back to pay for teachers and restore positions in our schools. So I want to understand first what we're looking at. And then, like with anything, I'd love to kind of figure out, you know, what kind of in our limited statutory capacity we can do to contribute to a solution here on the issue of school safety. And yeah, I'm not sure what that really is. I mean, you know, I've looked through before the meeting here, thinking on this issue as to kind of what our statutory role is. And, you know, I don't see much of a lane to directly impact this. So I think it's going to be more about, you know, what kind of advocacy. And man, I'm going to try to turn my focus, in the next year or so towards, things that we can directly impact through resolutions. I'd love to do more, just for example, with the work we've done on the Green New Deal for schools. There's still work we can do with curriculum there, which are some of the demands the students had. And I'd love to try to develop those. So I don't really have a good answer for you on it because I just don't see what our direct role is in this. And but I'm interested in working with you and trying to discern what that would be. And then certainly in our advocacy role, pushing for safety for our students once we understand kind of the new landscape of the problem heading into the new fiscal year.
I would think we could possibly, as a board, it could be like the qualitative part of it. Like, we are the people who are supposed to listen to your voice in education, I think is one of our cute things that we say. I think that, like, collecting information or talking to people and collecting information like how people are feeling. Because I know, again, like certain interventions on safety are happening. There's certain things are pulled, like funds are pulled. But it'd be interesting to see like what impact people feel. And sometimes those stories can help like substantiate a data trend or like, for instance, like if you're in a school and talking to students or teachers and it's just like, oh, does it seem like an increase in weapons? And I'm making up things. I'm not saying that there are, because I'm thinking like, like Terry's point about the security guards at the door who do the metal detectors. And it seems like there was an impact in funding there. Okay. Way to see, was that rollback harmful or, what's the number of like things you got in your building? I don't know, but then also asking people about like, safety components, like what things you feel safe about, what things you do not feel safe about. Because again, like talking to my students at Anacostia High School a summer ago, fresh off of like a couple weeks before like a shooting afterwards, it was wild to me to hear them say like, we feel okay. And I'm like, so then I can't like, put my hat on and say, well, because I feel unsafe, you gotta feel unsafe. Keep digging in and kind of hear like, okay, well, what things you don't feel unsafe about walking to school? That wasn't their issue. Their issue was more like other just things. So I'm just wondering if like we can use opportunities to like talk to people. Sorry, Darren, I see your hand. To like talk and hear and like use like engagement sessions, or maybe I don't have to even schedule things, make an appointment to go out and talk to people and see if like some of these interventions, are we seeing, what stories are we hearing and collecting, to see if there's an impact or if things are staying the same. I don't know, but I think that's within our scope to.
Yeah, and I think to combine some of these ideas, it might be worth starting with like clarifying, like creating an educational tool for the public around the resources that exist, and the roles and responsibilities of each role or service or position, and then asking people, hey, which of these do you think, are most effective at your school? Which one would you think would need more resources or should be focused on most to promote your safety, so that we can kind of get data on whether or not where people feel the needs are in their school communities.
I think that'd be helpful, Representative Williams. I know for me, the issues, some of my schools may be different from, the issues the students in Representative Reed's ward face. I mean, the issue that I hear the most is bullying in Ward 3, but there could be issues of more severe violence elsewhere that, so kind of getting that type of data might be really useful to see how we then try to tackle maybe very different problems. And then, with students that are traveling, the issue could be something that they experience along the way, not even necessarily an issue in the school. So that would be, I think, also very helpful if the fears that they have are in transit, maybe on metro or something like that. That would be good to know as well. So I second your idea for trying to get that type of data so we know kind of what approaches we need to take that may vary ward by ward.
I want to just jump in here really quickly, just to frame a few things. One, the money that we have right now is for this fiscal year and it ends the end of September. And so if we were to get the ball rolling on something like a student, it sounds like a student-centered survey or focused on students, but maybe educators, but that would have to be done at the start of it would probably be done at the start of the school year, late August, early September, so that they can conduct the survey or focus group, and then have like produce the report before the end of the fiscal year, because we can't pay off like if we go with a vendor, we would have to pay for that before the end of this fiscal year. That's one. Two, a lot of the points that are being brought up, I did kind of a crosswalk of my own of the current and recent surveys, focus groups, studies being done in DC, and the questions that they're asking, and a lot of these questions that were brought up, I know the Office of the Student Advocate is right now working on a survey and focus group on that. And they shared with me the questions that are being asked. And a lot of those, it'll be interesting to see that report when it comes out. I think towards the end of the summer, early fall, like when school reopens, they ask questions about safe passage, things like that. And so one of the things I wanted to raise up is we can still perhaps do two things, or maybe I could recommend two things. If we're going to focus on students, something that we could fill the gap in with is their experiences over the summer, returning to school. Like, what are their experiences actually returning back into school? Going that route, or taking globally, like I know the Deputy Mayor of Education's School Safety Enhancement Committee conducted focus groups, and I kind of pulled from that as well, that report, some of the questions they asked, and they asked some of these questions as well, but kind of diving deeper into maybe focusing on transitioning students, sixth graders, ninth graders, like focusing on a certain group of students, Spanish speaking students, something like that. Or again, just going back to school, something where we're like filling in the gaps of the research.
Yeah. I'm curious then to circle back and to Eric's point there at the beginning, like have we did the thing about like what makes students excited about coming to school and that kind of thing? Because they might like to the point, like if they're engaged and excited about attending, my guess is some of the, at least in the stuff in the building, could be possibly reduced in, regards to like possibly bullying and some of the student on student or student on teacher, or student on staff violence, or, altercations or whatnot. So I think like maybe, because yeah, you're right, the student advocate, they did that whole, I was able to sit in one of those sessions, and it was interesting to hear. It's like we were like, oh, safe passage, and the student was like, yeah, we see the safe passage worker there, but they're like, we feel safe walking from here to here, which was, and they're like, put them over there. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, maybe hitting on, because have we collected data yet about like the well-rounded student and exciting or whatever, engaging education? Like maybe that could, I just find we got a lot of safety stuff.
Representative Reed, I think you brought up a good point in the chat too about making sure we don't spend money to duplicate efforts that are already ongoing, with the work that's being done. Darren, can I ask you this? If I know we have to get the funds out by the end of the fiscal year, do our rules allow if we select like a grantee to do the work that we could then, as long as we disperse the money by October 1, they would be able to continue with the work in the new fiscal year, or does the work have to be completed in FY24 for it to count? Is it the disbursement of the money to the, I know if we had
I
staff
got
or
you.
we had an intern,
Yeah.
we'd have to complete
And
the
then-
work before then, but it just seems like we with the timing of the work we're going to be getting in from, our student advocate, we wouldn't necessarily be able to digest that and then build upon it by October 1. So how could that work? Is there a way we could to select a grantee and then grant the money
Well,
and
let
still
me
have
let
that
me jump
count?
in there. I get what you're saying. Here's the tricky part. I believe the say we hire someone, they collect data, like they have enough time to collect that data, and then the fiscal year ends. I think, and I could go back and find this out, but I think we'd have to then put this back, open up a bidding again, and it's a competitive bidding.
Yeah.
And so we can't just then select the same company or vendor that collected the data, which is ideal. You'd want the people who collect the data to analyze it and put a report together. But I think because of the competitive process,
They'd probably be well placed to prevail in it, but can we use our money from this year? And by hire, I think we're like retaining a contractor to do this work or a grantee. We'd be granting it, I think, right? So can we, if it's a grant, issue the grant with performance metrics? And then as long as the check is cut before October 1, will that count? Because I don't want us to lose our money. Will we be then getting more bang for our buck in the next fiscal year or not? Because if we could combine the two resources, with the committee's resources here, that would be maybe helpful. I'm worried about us losing the money and having it lapse.
That's a great question. I've never done anything like that, so I'd have to go back, probably ask Roma. Roma would probably be the best person to ask
Okay.
about that. So I can, I took a note to ask that question. In terms of getting, if this is like a larger scale, like say we want to just use the money we have right now, make it like a large scale, like put more funds into getting more like a wider pool of responses and collecting the data without the report. I think the tricky part is just having a faster turnaround for getting the report out. But if we want to just use the money right now to collect that data, and then later in fall, let me ask Roma, and maybe that would help with the decision on the direction to go with this, because I know we need to be getting out a statement of work soon for vendors to bid on it. If it's too late, say we put out a bid in late July, giving them a smaller turnaround time, fewer people will bid on this, or if anybody. I think in the past we put out a bid and nobody bid on I believe like Healthy Schools Facility Network. It was like a large scale project with a small timeline, and so we didn't get a lot of bids for that one. So yeah, I can check with them on that. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
All right, so let's move into, are there any final words on this topic, or are we good moving on to our last agenda item?
One last thing, I would love to start drafting a statement of work for vendors to review this week. So my goal is to start talk to Roma, get that information, come back to this committee, get your thoughts and finalize kind of like a research question, like who our target audience is. Are we just focusing on students? Kind of narrowing that down, and then getting a draft statement of work to you before sharing it with Roma to open it up for bidding. So by like next week, getting something out. I think it's very doable, but that's my goal, is to get something out. So we'd be more likely to get more than one bidding vendor, or yeah, more than one bid on this research.
That sounds good to me.
And there was like one other thing, I know at the top of the hour, if there was any other items to share. If there's time, Ben, would it be, Representative Williams, would it be okay if I share out that system map? Maybe it would help with that conversation around chronic absenteeism. And I'm also building out something for safety as well, to kind of help with where the state board sits with chronic absenteeism and safety.
Yeah, I think both of them are helpful for contextualizing our role in both issues. So thanks, Darren. And then Darren, I see here on the agenda the workforce data updates. I know we had briefly talked about that, but we didn't get new data from Aussie, correct?
We didn't. So that is reportedly coming out later this summer.
Yeah. So what I wanted to flag for us, you know, and it's something that's just kind of making sure people are aware of the work that's going on in the Educator Excellence Committee, was that, you know, we want to see, you know, continually again, which teachers are leaving. We still don't have exit surveys that are required for both DCBS and the charter sector. And we also don't have any data to know clearly where teachers are coming in from, like their training. Are they coming in from a traditional education prep program? Are they coming in from, you know, Teach for America? Are they coming in from urban teachers, you know, whatnot? And so that, Representative, like you had talked about, like, you know, students just wanting to come to school, and like oftentimes that's related to, you know, the teachers. And I think while we have control over standards, not necessarily like directly on curriculum, I'd like for us to push OSSI to give us clear data on the teacher workforce, so that we can support the teacher workforce to make sure that students are have a continuity with their school experience and are not losing teachers every year.
Representative Williams, can I just second that? I think that's really helpful. And, what I would love to add on this issue as we look at it in the fall is if just to try to brainstorm, with the representatives that we have on the committee, with the broader membership, to see what else we can do to push the chancellor on this DCPS contract. Because for me, it's just very frustrating. I was engaging with some folks during lunch on social media about this issue, but it's appalling to me that we have an expired contract again, now almost 2 years running on this. And, we've done, I think, all we can do as a board. We've passed a resolution on this. We put it in the budget letter. I think we've all been very vocal about supporting our workforce, but I don't know, maybe it's creating an engagement strategy where we get parents to sign and write in letters on this. But I think that's a big impediment right now to being able to retain teachers. It's just the distrust that it's building when we can't get a timely contract approved. And it's not good for the fiscal health of the city either, because that's a huge liability then that the city has to come back and find later. If we don't keep up with one of our major unions being funded in a timely manner. So I don't know. I'd love to kind of work with you on teacher retention, teacher wellness, and then see if this issue can come into it at all, and just try to see what else the board can do on it. I think we've been advocates, but I just don't know what else our role can be on this, to be honest. And I'm trying to figure that out.
As that clarifies in the other committee, I'll make sure to keep the board updated.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on that issue, Representative Reed or Villaflor, before we wrap up today? No? All right. Darren, was there anything that I missed or that we need to come back around to?
Would you mind if I just take 5 minutes to kind of introduce? I can't really share it in the chat because it's a draft version. I don't want it to be public just yet, or like the link to be publicly accessible just yet. But if I can kind of walk you through all of this and then share it with the committee, and then get further insight, or maybe further feedback from maybe Deputy Mayor of Education or others, but helping use this to frame where the state board fits with chronic absenteeism and safety.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So give me just a moment. I'll be right. My family just came home, so I'm gonna close the door. Give me one.
Well, Darren stepped away. Representative Villaflor, is this your last meeting with us? Are you officially graduated now? Are you you're going to be back another year?
Yeah, no, I'm officially graduated.
Oh no, we're sorry to lose you. We appreciated your joining us as a colleague. What school are you going to again?
Swanee University of the South.
Oh, congratulations. That's going to be fantastic. You're going to have to stop back and let us know how it's going.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
It's been a pleasure getting to serve with you on the board, so we're going to miss you.
Yeah, I miss you too.
All right. Well, congrats and good luck. College is fun. Enjoy it.
Be
It's
a
gonna be great.
stranger. Okay, sorry about that. I'm gonna share my screen. Joey, I'd love your feedback as well as a student for this. In fact, there's a part of this for students. So this is something called a system map. Kind of read a book on how to make this. This is my first one. But it's broken up into, can you all see my screen? So it's broken up into I broke this up into solutions, problems. I have an embargoed thing here just to show the public that this is in draft form. But this is research reports and legislative actions over here. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through how to read this on your own when I share this out, and possibly get feedback from you. And also just like some key things to use on this. Also, I'll write like a one pager to accompany this to kind of put this all together. But what's cool about a systems map is that you can kind of break it out using arrows to kind of line a few things up. So for example, going to the problem or like solutions to a problem. For example, if I click on, I don't know, access to free school meals, you'll see that this arrow lights up and points to student health. And if I click on, if I hover over student health, you'll see a bunch of arrows light up, and that would go to certain elements for strategies to attack that. One other thing before I shift over, you'll also see and hear something called a perspective. So if you click on that eye and then click, say, student perspective, everything on the map that kind of the students see themselves would be highlighted. So for example, safety, bullying, taking care of siblings, things like that. And I even have like go further down with the bill's legislation and other actions from OSSI. If I go on school educator point of view, there are some things that are not highlighted. If I click on this, then you'll see what the school sees. If I click on this, what the parents see. So for example, nudging and other behavior, like nudges or texts, the parents would see that, not so much the students. Government agencies, it would be, these are the ones that are highlighted. And so then those are covered up. And so it kind of, one advantage to a map like this is seeing the different perspectives, or see those perspectives from like students, schools, and whatnot. In terms of the problem here, I also break out the different attendance reports from school year 18-19 all the way to 2022-23. Compare that to the national averages. I also point to negative impacts on missing school for other students and teachers, as well as break out the definition for chronic absenteeism. Over here are research and reports, and what are some of the gaps in those reports that might help us identify research questions like what we brought up today. DC government reports and research, other reports. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And these are the key stakeholders. So we have the State Board of Education. And again, these arrows point to the reports that they've done. So Mayor's Office, OSSI, DCPS, local CBOs, other DC stakeholders like DPR, national, like national studies and organizations. And then over here, I have actions of the state board. So lead community efforts, things like that. And then this is from the crosswalk itself, like DC government bills, resolutions. So the state board, the Student Experience and Engagement Committee, that's one action or task force. Our resolution, and again, you could see the arrows pointing to different actions that we call for. So for example, educator training, data analysis reports, so on and so forth. But if then I go over to data analysis and reporting, it also links back to 4 other bills, and you could trace back which bills those are. So if I just hover over this, it'll show the 4 bills. Educator training only goes to our resolution. Family supports goes out to our resolution. And let's see here. The showing up for students, chronic absenteeism, and truancy reduction. So this is just an easier way to kind of map out and see kind of the bigger picture with chronic absenteeism. It's a lot. I definitely recommend if you want to just take like maybe 30 minutes and go through it. But again, this kind of maps out. It's not exhaustive, and I think that's where you all can come in, provide feedback, and eventually hear back from other stakeholders and other agencies and kind of fill in these gaps. But I'll stop sharing here and I'll share out a link after this. But thanks for your time. I just wanted to share that out, and I think it might be helpful to kind of help see where the state board fits in with things like chronic absenteeism or safety.
Yeah. Thanks, Darren. We know we got a lot going on in the city, so appreciate you organizing it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing it.
All right, y'all. Well, this adjourns our meeting. Let's be in touch with looking at some of the upcoming hearing testimony. And I will not be at the working session this upcoming week, but I will make sure to chime in, or I will try to log on virtually if I can. All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.